Hello, my stars, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Basil, and today I will be reading My Sister When I Cry by Mail Storms. I really hope I said that right. Anyway, this is a one shot. Now, here's the summary. Izuku had a sister once. A sister with black curls and apple green eyes, with freckled cheeks and a laugh as bright as the sun. I say they're just the ones who gave me life, but I truly am my parents' child. Izuku had a sister once. A sister with black curls and apple green eyes, freckles with a laugh as bright as the sun, scattered across my family line. I'm so good at telling lies. That came from my mother's side, told a million to survive. Izuku's mother was a broken woman. He was a child, not clueless, and he had learned very early on that when she claimed she was fine, that she actually very much wasn't. Her smile was fake, and he had wondered a lot how it didn't hurt her cheeks, and the way it pulled her lips up strangely. It was convincing, sure, but not to Izuku, not when he knew her real smile. Inko had days where she couldn't do anything. Izuku had Googled it, sneaking onto her computer when he was 8, and the word he had found was depression. It was fine, though. It just meant that he taught himself how to cook and pick up in her room when she did go to work, so she would come back to a clean area at least. He learned to lie to her. He smiled when he really felt like crying. He claimed he was fine when his arms hurt from the bruises his classmates left on them, or when all he really wanted to do was curl up and not move. Izuku was really quite good at lying. The only one who knew just how good he was Kachan, always watching him with sharp eyes and glaring when he caught him in a lie. The two boys had no friendship between them anymore. But there was also no animosity. They had been too close for that. So they ignored each other, except for sparing glances, or at family dinners, which was really only Auntie Mitsuki trying to get his mother to laugh, to draw her out of her shell. Kachan and Izuku spent it awkwardly avoiding openly talking to each other. Normally, and the Greenette declined all of his auntie's offers for sleepovers. Yes, the explosion user sensed Izuku's lies, but he didn't call him out, so the corkless boy kept doing it. He lied about starting fights, because it was what his teachers expected to hear, and it lessened his time spent in detention. He lied to the neighbor lady when she asked if his mother was home, claiming sickness. Inko had just needed a bit to rejuvenate, and Mitsuki had taken her to a hotel. It was fine. Although he wasn't sure what she had told Auntie who he was staying with. He wasn't sure he wanted to know. Izuku grew, despite his lies, into a slender teenager with a fragile face, softened slightly by baby fat clinging to him. Diamond-shaped freckles smattered on his face. With every day, he started to look more like his mother, slightly too thin. Green hair only differing by the dark roots now that he let it grow out, and had it in a similar style to hers. Izuku did not want to risk his curls looking like his father's. He moved like her too, shoulders hutched in slightly, Viridian eyes perpetually on the floor. Her eyes were different. Perhaps all the tears had washed them out, or perhaps they had always been that pale. Izuku couldn't remember. Yet he was still different, still his own person. Despite the insults, despite his quirkless nature, he moved with practiced grace. He had learned to fight, had lied about having a minor intelligence quirk, so the dojo would take him. They had never asked to see identification. He started running too. He figured that heroes had to be fit, especially a Corcus Underground one. I will see you after school, Mom, Izuku called out. There was no answer, and he hadn't expected one. After school turned out to be that evening, or more so late night, when he finally returned from the ordeal that had been the slime villain. All Might's no still rang through his bones, and so did his yes, so did his secret, his promise, his phone number. You can be a hero, the buff man said, and Izuku had smiled as if he believed him. Lies. Izuku wasn't sure if he should be sad or relieved that he didn't have to lie to his mom about his freshly changed diet, or the time spent exercising, or the slowly growing muscles on his lean body. She simply never asked. The greenette did the cooking anyway, so he simply cooked more, and she wordlessly set down more grocery money when he ran out early. I miss you, Mom, he whispered at her door one morning, her room dark from where she had missed her alarm for her shift. He wasn't sure if it was a lie or not. Cleaning the beach was kind of fun. Sure, All Might asked a lot of questions about his mother and the bruises and the dark circles underneath Izuku's eyes. About the red shoes he'd worn so long they had started falling apart, and about his dad. But Izuku was so good at half-truths and omission, at outright lies and white ones, that they all rolled easily from his tongue, joined by bright smiles, crinkling his eyes just so. Yes, he really was a good liar. It came from his mother's side. Scattered across my family line, God, I have my father's eyes, but my sister's when I cry. Who's this? The question was innocent enough, posed by Hagakure. Izuku had befriended her quickly into his start at UA, feeling drawn to the invisible yet weirdly expressive girl. He guessed she lied a lot too. Todoroki had come next, and almost simultaneously Hitoshi, both acquired at the sports festival. The duo had adapted well to becoming a quadrant, and had adapted even better to the purple brainwasher and the ninth holder of One for All becoming a thing. The three boys were sprawled out on Izuku's bed, Hitoshi's head in the greenette's lap, and Todoroki sitting against the headboard, knees holding up a laptop. All three looked up to where Hagakure was gesturing, only really shown by her long sleeve. Hitoshi and Todoroki did so curiously. They never really hung out in Izuku's room, since Hagakure had a switch, and the living room had other people to socialize with. Despite half of them being introverted, they all had managed to get other casual friends in their 1.5 years at UA. Even Hitoshi and Izuku usually spent their time in the purple-haired boy's room, since he had fluffy blankets. The greenette looked up, much more resigned, knowing that she would not ask about his mother, who looked so much like him that it hurt, or the picture of toddler Katsuki and toddler Izuku with their parents, both still looking the same except bigger. My sister, he replied softly, smiling sadly at the ebony-haired girl in the picture, her lips in a carefree laugh, her hands up as she pointed excitedly at something behind the camera. Izuku knew that she was pointing at baby him. I didn't know you had a sister, Hagakure said softly, thoughtfully, gazing at the girl, as if she would jump out of the picture and start talking about Izuku's many secrets. Hitoshi tensed and gazed up at Izuku, but the boy avoided his eyes. She's dead, he instead replied, and he saw Hagakure's clothes freeze. Todoroki simply angled his head toward Izuku more. Oh, the invisible girl made softly and then added, I'm really sorry. Izuku shrugged, with more empathy than he felt, summoning a smile that still came effortlessly. It was a long time ago. It was. Still, he was well aware of the worried glances it earned him, and just as aware that it was justified. Izuku would be worried about himself too. Should, maybe be. What was her name? Hagakure asked instead, after a few beats of silence, not pointing out that nobody in the room believed Izuku. They never pointed out his lies, even if he knew they noticed them, recognized them as the same lies they told. It was nice of them. Yukio. The words rang out with his usual tenderness. He had not known her very well, only remembered her from pictures, the sound of her voice singing to him, her laugh. Still, he never uttered her name without reverence. You have the same eyes. Todoroki spoke up, and Izuku glanced at him briefly, knowing that the boy's dead brother had also had the same eyes as the youngest of Endeavor's children, or at least the same as one of Todoroki's eyes. He could have pointed out that his eyes were much more similar to Yukio's when they had both cried, feeling the same way, glinting green in the dim light of the hospital, their shoulders moving the same as as the younger sobbed. He didn't. Thanks, he said instead. Todoroki kirked a very small smile at him. Izuku pulled out his phone after that, showing them more childhood photographs. The formerly corkless boy didn't speak about his family again, not to anyone but Hitoshi in the dark of the night when they snuck past Aizawa and stayed in each other's rooms. His friends didn't ask. We should ask Sensei if we can go watch the new cartoon coming out, Hagakure suggested ideally when they were walking back to the dormitories, coming from class. She was skipping, her uniform fluttering in the wind. Her hands was loosely holding Todoroki's, as friends only. She just liked grabbing them and pulling them along. Hitoshi and Izuku followed at a much more leisurely pace, not holding hands. The greenette didn't like public displays of affection, didn't like any displays of it actually. Cuddling was fine, but only barely, and other than that, they showed their love in non-physical ways. Hitoshi scribbling down a cork he saw for Izuku, and Izuku cooking Hitoshi's favorite meal. For now, it was enough. Even if Hitoshi wasn't asexual, and Izuku wasn't sure what he was. Maybe asexual. Probably. The greenette tilted his head when Kachan came back towards them from where he had left earlier than them. It was strange. None of them walked back to school after leaving for the dormitories. Not even when they had forgotten something. Unless it was vital. Like Izuku's essay for Aizawa, sending the boy into an anxiety attack when he couldn't find out first. He got an A. So instead of responding to Hagakure, Izuku tried to figure out what he read in his quasi-cousin's face. Despite sharing a class, they still didn't quite talk. Your shithead of a father is here. Kachan grounded out when he was close enough and Izuku abruptly stopped on the path. What? He asked, furrowing his brows. I thought he was in the US. Looks like he came back. Want me to tell him to fuck off? Kachan asked. Sure, they didn't talk, but they still knew each other. His neighbor knew all his secrets. Hitoshi reached out very briefly, whip quick, to squeeze Izuku's hand before dropping it again. Hagakure stood rather neutrally, but he saw her neck move, which meant she was turning her head from Kachan to Izuku and back. Todoroki looked mildly confused. Nah, it's fine. I'll go talk to him, Izuku said softly. He wasn't very sure of his decision, but he moved regardless. Hey, Dad, he said when he came up behind the man. Hisashi's black curls Eyes the exact same shade as Izuku's and a narrow face, all sharp angles with freckles all over it. He had grown out his hair a bit and had gotten more muscles. Other than that, he looked the same as on Izuku's pictures. Izuku, my darling, the man said. His voice was rough and smoky from his cork, and it held so much genuine happiness that Izuku bristled. What do you want? The greenest asked, suddenly very, very tired. Does Mom know you're here? He hoped not. Inko was doing bad enough without Izuku there to pull her out of her moods, and to make sure she ate and slept. It would only be worse if his father stopped by and left again. I just wanted to see you, Hisashi said, and had the audacity to look hurt. And no, I wanted to see my only child first. Anger hit Izuku like a train at the bastante ensure of his sister, and he bit his lip so hard it hurt. I'm not interested, and stay away from Mom. She deserves better, Izuku said, and then he turned and walked away. Hisashi had left long enough ago that Izuku remembered his sister better than him. He wasn't sure if he was sad or relieved that the man didn't make a move to stop him. The boy ignored his friends and instead walked past the common room area to his homeroom teacher's room. Izuku knocked, eyes like his father's fixed on the door. It opened to reveal Aizawa, looking as tired as always, and when the man looked at his student, he would find Yukio's eyes full of tears and green like the forest, looking back at him. Sensei, I think my mom needs help I can't provide, he said. Telling the truth was harder than lying. I can run, but I can't hide from my family line. Alright, my stars, that is the end of the fic. I did mess up on some parts, but I really was not bothered fixing them. Because this is a song with the fic, I wouldn't sing it. There was absolutely no hope for me to sing it. But I read it out as well as I could, the song, so hope I did it a bit of justice. And I really liked this fic. I like how Izuku has a sister in this, and I like how it kind of like touches upon the topics of being able to lie really well while growing up in a toxic environment. And it's just a really good fic in general. But I really hope you guys liked it. And if you guys have any other recommendations for fics you want me to podfic, you can put them down in the comments below. I would love to hear what you have to say. And my socials and Discord are in the description below. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, my stars.